Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, a podcast by a UFO nerd and his tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And I'm Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd and a tolerant friend.
We started this podcast because since 2017, there have been shocking revelations, from news of secret Pentagon programs to confirmed videos of astonishing craft. In a nutshell, now that we know the government has recovered non-human technology.
Or at least we will, once these new whistleblowers get into a skiff.
It raises a natural question. If UFOs are real, what else? Suddenly, some of these other parts of the phenomenon that seemed unlikely are pulled into the realm of the possible.
And they may still be unlikely, but even if it's new science and not aliens, whew.
It's a very exciting time.
Boy, it's
man.
been a long
Chuck,
time.
It's been almost 3 months, buddy.
That's crazy. I still don't. I feel like the math must be wrong.
We ended up taking a summer vacation, which there was a lot of behind the scenes talk about how do we make the podcast more sustainable and what do I need to change about my show prep. And at one point, Chuck, you told me that your wife, Erica, has a belief that like every hobby needs like a 3-month break, like once a year.
Yeah.
So I honestly think 80% of the benefit just came from us taking a little time off from the podcast. I feel good. I came back. I spent a little less time on the notes, which hopefully no one will notice but me because I was ridiculously over preparing the show notes in the past.
Yeah.
I will say over the summer, I was still watching and monitoring all the UFO news channels and kind of like paying attention. Like, is this the story that's going to bring me out of retirement? Like, what's going on? And there were a few things that I was paying attention to. But the thing that finally did bring us back is, if you haven't heard, Congress just held another UAP whistleblower hearing.
Nice.
Brand new
Those
one.
are always fun.
They are fun. And I just, the other day, finished watching the entire 3-hour hearing, and you know what I was struck the most by? Most of the Congress people there were reading prepared statements and could not get through a sentence. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Like, a lot of times I'm reading written stuff on screen, and I kind of pride myself on my ability to do that, which is a weird thing to say. I read to my kids all the time, you know? Like, I do fun voices. And I'm watching them just like trip over their own words, and like they're clearly hitting the line break at the end of the page and then scanning back, and it was a little rough, man.
Wow. Yeah, that's also something I kind of pride myself on as well. So that is surprising.
Yeah, it was very weird. I would think politicians, public speaking, this is the thing that they would be good at, but not necessarily.
Maybe they're actually good at politicking.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Let's not.
One could argue. Yeah, that's probably all right. Fair.
Big whistleblower hearing. They've been teasing this one all summer, especially Burleson and Luna, representatives Eric Burleson and Representative Anna Paulina Luna. Anna Paulina Luna is the head of the Federal Secrets Task Force that's looking into like JFK, Epstein, all that. Well, probably not Epstein anymore.
Why? Wait.
Oh, Chuck. We don't have time to get into the hot potato that the Epstein files have become, but suffice to say, the Republicans are not particularly motivated to dig into that anymore.
Okay. Interesting.
Point being, the Federal Secrets Task Force and the UAP caucus have all been kind of talking about, we're going to do more hearings. And at one point, I believe Burleson said there are going to be 2 hearings this summer, one of which is going to be witnesses from the crash retrieval program. like firsthand
Okay.
witnesses to the reverse engineering
Yeah,
efforts. I'm like, whoa, that would be amazing.
that'd be pretty
Um,
awesome.
that didn't happen. The witnesses for this hearing were announced, and they're good witnesses, don't get me wrong, but they are more firsthand military witnesses and
Okay.
journalists.
Okay.
There's nobody who's directly, I worked in the crash retrieval program. Um,
Yeah. That's not
Representative
surprising.
Luna at one point said, we had tried to get another hearing with the task force before this one, and every single witness we had reached out to said they did not want to testify because they were scared for their life. And these were not people that you see in the media. These were not podcasters or anyone who's made a career talking about it. These were legitimate former military or military contractors, and they were literally afraid of being killed.
Yeah. So, I mean, this wasn't there a whole like anti like whistleblower protections thing that they were working on? Did that just amount to nothing?
So they actually talked about this a few times in the. Well, okay, this was a whole sub thread in the hearing that I'm going to be honest with you, we're not going to talk about a lot today
Okay. Yeah.
because whistleblower protections are something that everyone agrees we need more of. So it
Okay.
wasn't really like there weren't any hot quotes about that. Everyone was like, yeah, we need more.
Yeah. All right.
Um, the problem that they mentioned at one point, they explicitly said this, is a lot of what the whistleblowers are, a lot of the whistleblower protections that we have on paper are about legal protections. You're not
Mm-hmm.
legally allowed to apply ramifications to them, but they do it anyway. So Congress is looking for additional whistleblower protections, especially around not taking away their security clearances. And this is
Okay.
the same thing we hear about in the Navy and the Air Force, where pilots are reluctant to give UAP sightings
Right.
because
Because they'll be
if
grounded.
there's any hint that you are mentally unstable, the first thing they do is yank your pilot's license. And if
Right.
you're a
Yeah.
pilot who can't fly, your career's a dead end. So
Yeah.
extract that across every military contractor in the world who depends on a security clearance. It's the exact same thing.
Right. I guess
They're not
the
supposed to target your security clearance, but
right.
in practice, they do. And then the
But
other thing that happens is there are extra legal
yeah.
repercussions for
Yeah.
them. And
That's what I'm
this is where
curious
you're
about.
talking about like helicopters buzzing your house at all hours of the night, people pulling weapons on
Mm,
you, threats, phone calls, things like that.
right.
Luna talked about this. She said, you had David Grush tell us directly that he felt in fear of his life. And even just yesterday, I actually went into the skiff with David Grush and Representative Burleson, and there was something really bizarre that took place with David Grush, and it's being handled at the law enforcement level. But things like that happening are not normal, especially being that David Grush is currently Eric Burleson's congressional staffer.
Yeah. No kidding. Like that seems dicey to assault a congressional staff or whatever. What do we
Right.
know what kind of thing happened?
So she danced around it every time, but
Okay.
lucky for us, she gave a couple of interviews, and on one of them, she kind of tipped her hand about what happened. She said something happened as he was driving in. Law enforcement is involved, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but if you're going to brandish any weapons at congressional staffers, it's very alarming. It was
Yeah.
very interesting in timing, and based on what we've heard previously from witnesses, this is not the first case of it.
Huh. Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot going on there, but if it's local law enforcement, that must mean like not necessarily a planned military thing. This was random yokels. Like, can't we get
You say
them?
local law enforcement?
No, it just
Or
says
did you
law
just say law
enforcement.
enforcement? Yeah, so I don't know if that means DC
Mm,
police. I don't know if that means
could be
FBI.
FBI.
Like, I
Okay.
have no
Okay.
idea. But the implication is certainly that Grush was driving in and someone pointed a gun at him. Well,
Right. Yeah.
that's weird. But it kind of goes back to what we were hearing about from Jake Barber when he talked about Skywatch. When he
Yeah.
was coming to Congress looking for whistleblower protection, they were like, oh my God, thank God you're here. We're all being threatened and we need help from someone with your skill set. And he's like, I'm here for your help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we are definitely dealing with something where the laws and the tools that Congress has at their disposal to protect whistleblowers are not sufficient to deal with the practical threats to life
Yeah.
and livelihood that these whistleblowers are experiencing. So
Yeah.
they did have whistleblowers come in. We're going to hear from them. Um, but these are all the kind of witnesses we have heard from in the past. These are
Mm,
military witnesses. They're credible. They're talking about incidents that happened that have either multiple witnesses or verifiable, like radar tracks and things like that, to back
mm-hmm.
them up. They're very interesting, but it sounds like the gatekeepers, whoever they are, were successful at their efforts to intimidate anyone involved in the actual crash retrieval and reverse engineering program from speaking up. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I wonder why we can't hire Jake Barber and co. Like it's kind of their jam. Or Secret Service, you know?
Yeah. I don't know what sort of options are available in terms of Congress hiring their own protection. Like
Yeah.
they're kind of supposed to lean on the Capitol Police. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the whole thing is a mess, is basically what I got from this. And across the board, bipartisan, everyone agreed whistleblowers need more protection. There is actually a fifth witness who is here that I'm not even mentioning today. This guy from a lobbyist group who is all about whistleblower protections. And there were a bunch of questions aimed at him that were sort of setting like, why are whistleblowers important? Why do we need
Mm,
to protect them? And it felt a lot more like prepared lobbying statements, so I'm not
got it.
interested in that here. But again, nobody disagreed that the whistleblowers need more protection.
Okay.
um
Well,
Before we get to the actual meat of the hearing, there was one little bit of drama
of course.
before the hearing. And I'm not joking, Chuck. I went back and forth, added these lines, and deleted them 3 different times from our
Is
show
that why
notes.
every like I was putting my quotes in and every time
Uh,
I would like put a quote in and it would like disappear
yeah,
as
I'm
the
sorry. I
okay.
was probably editing while you were looking at it.
No,
But
that's fine.
here's the deal. You know that meme like, oh no, the worst person you know just made a really good point. Like,
Yeah.
over the like weekend before the hearing, Sean Kirkpatrick and Representative Luna got into it.
Mm,
And boy, I can't stand either of these people, so watching them fight is kind of a popcorn moment, but it's also like it doesn't really add anything. So I just kind of want to breeze through it real fast because it
okay,
is
yeah.
noteworthy for a reason I'll explain in a moment. So before the hearing, a podcaster asked former Aero director Sean Kirkpatrick what he thought about the new UAP hearing. And he gave a hell of a quote. He said, if Luna and her lunatics want to continue to parade charlatans and grifters in front of an audience to satisfy her need for playhouse politics, then the American people should demand accountability of all the wasted taxpayer money and congressional time she has derailed from more serious issues facing this country. It's a disgrace to the Congress and the U.S. government and only serves to provide reality TV. Woof.
Yeah, that's incredible quote and honestly, lunatics, so good. Like
It.
that has to be her
I
band,
don't
right?
know whether she actually calls her followers lunatics, and if not, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
But yeah, anyway,
absolutely. Get on that.
shots fired, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit, Sean. Like,
Yeah. Who
um,
knew?
Representative Luna wasted no time having her press person release a statement. Kirkpatrick is an irrelevant little man who is a known documented liar, has blocked the release of information, and tried to discredit witnesses. It seems to me he's suffering more from small man complex, and sometimes his big emotions get the best of him. We will continue to pray for the recovery of Mr. Kirkpatrick and his tiny ego and his journey to deal with his mental health.
Holy shit.
Wow. Um, you
So
know the
much there.
saying like never wrestle a pig, like
Yeah.
You both get dirty and the pig likes it. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
wow, don't go low with
Yeah.
Luna.
Luna's
She'll
right
go
in
right
there.
down with you. And she didn't let up. In her opening statement, she referenced this. She said, recently, the former Arrow director, known as Sean Kirkpatrick, attacked our witnesses and members on this committee. That's true and alarming.
Hmm.
It should be
Wait, I
noted
want to
that
know more.
he's a. Mhm.
I would
What?
like to know more about how he attacked them.
No, that was it, right?
Just
Like
like
his
verbally. Okay. Like
statement.
he
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. There was
Harassment
no
is probably
knives.
a
Okay.
better word.
Okay. All right,
But
cool.
yeah, Sean Kirkpatrick attacked our witnesses and members on this committee. It should be noted that he is a documented liar and brings into question what his purpose at Arrow really was, if not to follow up on investigations and disclose his findings to members of Congress. Later, she said, I would be happy to send a subpoena to Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Yeah. Uh,
Ugh.
I mean, yeah, that'd be.
So yeah,
He's not going to say anything interesting though. A subpoena isn't going to get you anywhere.
yeah, I mean it's theater. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is the thing, right? Like Kirkpatrick's not wrong, but neither is Luna. And
No.
really, I didn't want to talk about this at all because it's just mudslinging. And they were both
Yeah.
gleeful about it. So this is why I
Yeah.
cut it out and put it back in. At the end of the day, I decided to keep it because while I wish it was uncommon, it's certainly not appropriate to be verbally attacking members of
Mm,
Congress and their witnesses at a hearing,
right.
calling all of the witnesses who are, like former and current service members, charlatans and grifters. That shit sucks.
Yeah.
Like it's not illegal. Like, is he within his rights to do that? Sure. But boy, I wish this wasn't the current state of politics. So anyway,
Yeah.
I've spent way too much time on it already, but
Okay.
I felt it was worth mentioning because this was the vibe coming in.
Yeah.
David Grush had a gun pointed at him. An entire hearing was canceled because all of the witnesses pulled out of fear for their life. The former director of Arrow, not the current director of Arrow, this guy
Yeah.
works somewhere else now, is
Yeah.
attacking Congress. Luna's like gleefully wading into the mud to spar with him. Like, it was
Yeah.
messy coming in,
Yeah.
is the point
Yeah.
I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Now, that said, Luna's opening statement, she's the chairperson on the committee, on the
Okay.
task force. So she got to talk first. She said a couple things that I thought were really good. She kind of set the tone for it. First thing she said that I liked, she said, Congress tried to create formal channels through the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, also known as ARROW, and the Intelligence Community Inspector General for service members and officials to make disclosures. But the reality, the reports came in and are too often brushed aside, slow walked, or met with skepticism rather than serious investigation. Oh, I already said this quote. Recently, Sean Kirkpatrick attacked our members. It raises the question of what his purpose at Arrow was, if not to follow up on investigations and disclose his findings to members of Congress. So
Yes.
yeah, like right out the gate, she's like, hey, we've got channels here that
Yeah.
are supposed to be congressionally mandated UAP reporting.
Hmm.
And from the outside, it looks like the people running those efforts are antagonistic to it. What does that
Right.
mean? That's,
And what is the point? Is this working? Can we do something better? Almost certainly.
yeah.
I am curious. One question that I forgot to ask earlier was, uh, she said documented liar, and I can think of many cases where that was the case.
Yeah.
But was there a specific document she was talking about?
Yes. So there are a lot of points where we think Kirkpatrick was lying or at least manipulating the truth. But
Hmm.
there is one very obvious incident where he was caught in an overt lie. And it's the most embarrassing minor thing that he had no reason to lie about, which is Kirkpatrick really wanted to appear neutral
Hmm.
about this. He really wanted to look like the impartial arbiter of UAPs. And that meant every time anybody asked him, did you have any interest in the UAP topic before you joined Arrow? He was like, no, absolutely.
Hmm.
So there's a TV show that I've talked to you before called Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. Okay.
The owner of the ranch, Brandon Fugel, is very active on social media and loves talking about his efforts to like legitimize the
Yeah.
investigations at Skinwalker Ranch. And he loves the fact that there were official government investigations there before. And one of the
Yeah.
stories that he has told repeatedly is about being called to Washington and giving a presentation about their research efforts to a group of people in
Mm.
Washington. He claims Sean Kirkpatrick was at that briefing, and before he had a chance to start talking, Kirkpatrick leaned forward and said, Mr. Fugel, please don't waste your time trying to convince anyone in this room of the realities of UAPs. It is an understood given. Just get, like basically telling me you have limited time, get to the meat of it.
Mm.
But this was before he worked at Arrow. So for
Yeah.
him to come in and say, everyone here understands the reality of UAPs, and then give interviews saying, I had no interest in UAPs beforehand, doesn't add up.
Suspicious.
But this was a he said, she said thing, right?
Yeah.
So Fugel says this, and Brandon Fugel, while he's fun to watch, maybe not the most credible person. He has a
Sure.
tendency to showboat a little bit. And
Yeah.
I would not find it hard to believe that he was maybe drumming up his own importance in these affairs.
Sure.
So Sean Kirkpatrick calls his bluff. He says, I wasn't at this meeting. I was, in fact, somewhere else. I have no idea what this man is talking about. He's lying. Brandon Fugel brought receipts. He put up photos and stuff of Sean Kirkpatrick being there. Like,
That's right.
yes, Sean, you were there. And like,
Yeah.
absolutely caught him in the lie. And everyone was kind of shocked because what a weird, dumb thing to lie about. Like,
Yeah.
he
Right.
could have said, yeah, I was invited to this meeting. I wasn't part of it. I didn't say the thing he said, but yes, I was. Like, he could have defused this whole thing, but
Hmm.
instead he's like, no, I wasn't there. So, yeah, in this one instance, he is absolutely confirmed to have publicly lied about it.
Yeah.
And of course, the question you have whenever this stuff comes up, this dude acts super sketchy about everything and is super dismissive about UFOs. And if he was willing to lie about this mundane, stupid meeting,
Yeah.
what else is
What
he willing
else?
to lie about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing that Luna said in her opening statement that I really liked was just kind of recapping for anyone who maybe hasn't been paying close attention to it, how many people, like public, high ranking people, have taken this seriously. She said the witnesses today are not alone. In fact, they're far from it. In fact, 34 senior military government and intelligence officials have broken their silence. This includes now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Senator Rounds, Senator Gillibrand, General Jim Clapper, the former director of the government's UAP task force, the former head of aviation security for the White House National Security Council, the former Secretary of Defense, and many more. To quote Secretary of State Rubio in an upcoming documentary known as The Age of Disclosure, quote, even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis that begins to spin out of control, end quote. And to quote Senator Gillibrand, who also went public in this documentary, quote, it's not acceptable to have secret parts of this government that no one ever sees, end quote. It is time for the fundamental truths of UAP to be revealed to our nation's leaders and public.
That. Yeah. That sounds great. When is that documentary coming out? Do you know?
God, no one knows, and it's so
Okay.
frustrating. They premiered
Yeah.
it at a film festival, and normally when a movie is premiered at a film festival, the goal is to find a distributor. So
Right.
who knows where they are on the spectrum of getting it released, but they have been talking this documentary up for almost a year now, and everybody is frothing at the mouth to get it. It's supposed to be
Mm.
very, very good. I can't remember if it was Lou Elizondo or someone else who said the government is planning to treat this documentary as a form of soft disclosure, which
Mm.
is a
Okay.
wild claim, and I have no
Yeah.
idea if there's any basis to it, but like
Right.
nobody's talking about it like, oh, it's just another documentary. They're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is the big one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Um, Yeah,
Yeah, I love hearing
that's
Luna kind of recap.
yeah,
We've been doing this podcast for years now,
yeah.
and we get these quotes drifting in every now and then. Someone says something and we report on it
Hmm.
here, but sometimes you need that kind of high level recap of like, yeah, like this person and this person and this person and this
Yeah.
person and this person. And for me, it always comes back to, I think it was Rubio who had a quote along the lines of like, these whistleblowers we're talking to, they're not one or two or three, they're dozens of people who are credible, high ranking people with security, like who we trust to do things. And
Mhm.
they're all saying this. And if they're all wrong, it means either they've all been lied to, which is bonkers, or they're all mentally ill, which is an even bigger problem.
Even
Like
more
no
bonkers.
matter
Yeah.
what, the fact that this many credible people are saying things is worth paying attention to. And I always
Yeah.
kind of come back to that. Like, even if you're not ready to come with me on UFOs are real and they're not from here, the fact that UFOs are real and this many people are talking about them and there seems to be a cover up going on,
Hmm.
that's worth talking about. Even if it does
Yeah.
turn out to be an American Black Ops program, if it
Right.
is, it has been improperly run and has put people in danger.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So,
Okay.
we've got a bunch of witnesses to go through. I love them. They've got great stories. Before we do, we need to talk about the event that happened at this hearing that sucked all the air out of the room and is
Oh.
basically all anyone has been talking about, which I think is a mistake because it's arguably the least interesting thing that happened.
Okay.
Um, not Senator, Representative Burleson introduced a video that he received. And he said, this is a video of a drone in Yemen firing a Hellfire missile at a UAP. And then they play the video. I've linked the video in the show notes.
Yeah.
Um, the video is another one of those targeting camera infrared
Hmm.
systems. And you see a tic tac shape zipping along that the camera is tracking. And it's rotating, just like the other videos we've seen. So
Hmm.
it's not a drone that is, in an aerodynamic configuration. It's kind of like wobbling through the air. And it's hard to tell speed because I'm not an aerospace,
Yeah.
visual forensics person, and you're probably getting some parallax motion, but it seems to be cruising right along. And then out of the top left corner of the screen, a missile comes in, hits the object, and in the hearing, it was described as deflecting or bouncing off. What I can
Mm.
say is it does not explode. It continues on past the object, but its trajectory is changed.
Mm-hmm.
The object appears to spin or bounce, and three smaller objects are ejected from it, and then they continue on their trajectory until they drift off screen.
Okay.
Confusingly, the next half of the video is a shot of that Tic Tac object from a larger distance.
Mm.
And
Oh, yeah. I
if I
couldn't tell what was going on
understood
there.
them right, that is an earlier video, which is, I don't know why they would edit it that way. So I don't know if that is continuing footage of it after the collision or anyway, weird video, right? The
Yeah.
object rotates before impact. Three little orbs seem to emerge from it and continue following the main
Yeah.
object. And the main object appears to retain its original shape, right? If it was a balloon,
Yeah.
you would expect it to rupture and dramatically shrink.
Something. Yeah.
So while it changes shape, it doesn't appear to like explode or pop or deflate. Very strange video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So we've seen the rotation thing. It can be just like an optics thingy, but it's a lot harder to explain away the three little parts in them like coming
yeah.
back together if that
Yeah.
is what happened.
And it's worth noting that it's an infrared video, and the three objects that come out are the same temperature as the larger
Mhm.
object. And the larger
Mhm.
object is hot. It's
Yeah.
not like cold like you would expect
Hmm.
a balloon to be. So what is going on here? Nobody seems to know. Now, it made a
Yeah.
big splash in the hearing. They played it twice. At one point, Burleson asked George Knapp what he thinks, and George Knapp says, "That's a Hellfire missile smacking into that UFO, and it just bounced right off and kept going."
Yeah.
Very, very weird.
It is.
In
It
the
is an amazing video.
It's very, very strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in the immediate aftermath, a few people kind of chime in, piggybacking on this, like, whoa, what a weird video. Former fighter pilot Ryan Bodenheimer says the Hellfire's laser guidance is surgical. It does not miss. This was a clean shot, and the UAP just didn't give a damn. And it looks like it's not a glitch in the Hellfire missile either. This is just something we haven't ever seen before. Um, I want to interject here for a moment. While
Yeah.
Chuck is an aerospace nerd, he's not a Air Force munitions nerd.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are parts of this that overlap with his knowledge. I'm certainly not a munitions nerd or a video forensics nerd. So we're both kind of relying on what other people say about it.
Yeah.
So when a fighter pilot tells me this isn't how a Hellfire missile behaves, I give that a bit
Yeah.
of credibility.
Yeah.
Former director of ATIP, Lou Elizondo, gave an interview. He said, "This video does require more analysis, and if it turns out that this is something that's a hard object, something tangible, it would be very, very unusual, if not, dare I say, almost impossible for a Hellfire missile to strike it and not completely destroy it or obliterate it."
Yeah. 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 So with Scott's caveat in there, I did look it up briefly, and I didn't realize the Hellfire was originally an anti-tank missile.
Right.
Um, so
They
I
also
feel
fire it
like,
from drones now. It was originally ground
yeah,
to air. Now it's also air to air.
yeah, and air to ground. So like, yeah, anti-tank. I can see why why Lou would say that. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pretty
Now,
big
there
deal.
are a couple of details that I did pick up on while I, like Chuck, was reading what everyone was saying about Hellfire missiles.
Hmm.
You saw that it was laser guided. It has this little, like, translucent nose cone that has, like, a camera optics array in the front. So it is adjusting itself as it goes. It is also capable of hitting incredibly high speeds, but notably, it can adjust its track as it goes to follow its laser guidance,
Yeah,
and it hits those speeds and then turns off its engine. It also, like most missiles, detonates via what they call like a G-force feedback. Basically,
sure.
if the missile decelerates really suddenly, that's the trigger.
It's
So it
probably a
has
good
to
time.
hit something hard enough to trigger the explosion. Um, Representative Burleson gets a lot of attention in the days after this, and people are asking him about it. And he is kind of hand waving away the video. He's like, "Look, I received it anonymously in a way that I have learned is called a dead drop. The video is scrubbed of all information. It's completely anonymous. There's nothing to trace it back, and I have no idea who gave it to me. I don't have the resources to do forensic on videos. I could sit on it, but I'm a disclosure guy, so I'm going to let the internet figure out the validity of this video."
It was all right. So we're going catastrophic disclosure. Let's get our
Yeah.
popcorn and get ready. Oh my
Now,
god.
here's the thing. We recently gave Lou Elizondo a little bit of grief for doing this
Exactly
thing.
this.
He put up a photo in a meeting, said, "I was just given this, and I don't know what it is, but boy, it sure looks like a big UFO." And everybody was like, "Holy shit, Lou found a new UFO video." And within minutes, the internet was like, "This is a satellite photo of a cornfield."
Yeah.
Um, in Burleson's defense, although he is doing the same thing, putting up an unvalidated video, he was clear about that from the get-go. And even in the hearing, he was like, "I don't know what this video is. I'm not making claims about it." The point he was trying to make is this kind of stuff is out there. Why aren't we, Congress, seeing it? Why is
Right.
this being
Yeah.
hidden from us? Now, at this point, the internet gets its footing and
Of
they
course.
start debunking the video. And I've got a few quotes here that kind of give you a sense of where people seem to have kind of landed. Um, An anonymous British Army ammo tech who was
Okay.
explicitly trained in Hellfire missiles says it follows a guided trajectory. When that missile comes in, all it cares about is punching into that target and exploding. The reason why it didn't explode, unfortunately, is quite boring. It didn't have enough force on impact, which tells you that the object is extremely soft, light, and basically didn't overcome the safety mechanism, which is it has to hit a certain deceleration to prime the fuse and detonate the warhead. So all that tells me is the target is extremely soft or light.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at alien jello then.
Right. Joe Murgia posted a very long list of information about it, which I actually first saw on our own Discord. So thank you, everybody on the Discord who posted it. The boiled down to a lot of information about how Hellfires work, but he says the evidence is most consistent with a slow-moving or stationary balloon carrying an electrical payload, that's to explain the heat reading,
Uh,
struck by a Hellfire that failed to detonate.
I mean, yeah, could be. I
Yeah.
don't know how often that happens.
I mean, this is the whole thing, right? So what people are kind of leaping to is this is probably a test fire of a
Mm,
Hellfire missile against a soft target.
sure.
But there's some weird things about it too. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Another person on the internet, a guy named Missile Man, who was linked to by a bunch of people, appears to be credible. His bio says material science, physics, aerospace, and defense. He says, I showed the video to engineering physicists and weapons designers. Note, not warfighters and not Hellfire designers. Consensus opinion so far is twofold. One, there's not enough data from the output screen
Yeah.
to make a definitive conclusion. Velocity data of threat before and after the collision is extremely important, and we
Sure.
don't have it.
Yeah.
Two, the events on screen are not inconsistent with a glancing impact of an air-to-air Hellfire against a small drone or balloon. There will be a lot of arguing, but frankly, I'm not sure we can learn anything more from the existing video. We need more data.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly
Now,
what you said at the beginning, right?
right, depending on your bent, you're going to hear that as this is a video of a Hellfire hitting a balloon,
Mm,
or you're going to hear this as it could be a video hitting a Hellfire balloon, but we don't have enough information to say one way or another. I actually appreciate that view on it.
yeah.
It could be something weird, like an alien UAP made out of jello. We don't know.
Right.
It's not inconsistent with hitting a balloon. And to
Yeah.
get to back to what you're always saying, Occam's razor tells us it's a lot more likely that it's hitting a man-made target or a balloon than that it's hitting some weird soft-bodied UAP that we've never heard
Right.
of before.
Yeah.
But neither one can be ruled out from this
Right.
video.
I
Um,
I just wonder if the U.S. military is practicing against balloons now,
maybe,
since they
right?
kind of had a
And
bad
as
run
you
of it
pointed
early.
out, the Hellfire was originally ground to air.
Hmm.
This is a relatively new thing that they mount it on drones now. So maybe
Hmm.
this was during the testing phase when they're just seeing,
Yeah.
is this even plausible?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Probably the best bit of feedback I saw related to this video came from former Navy pilot Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves, we've talked about before on the show. He is himself a UAP witness. Graves says, after further review, it is conceivable that the video is of a the reason he says after further review is because he was one of the people who was very excited about the video up front. It was like, this
Hmm.
is really unusual. He then follows up. He says, after further review, it is conceivable the video is of a prosaic target struck by a missile. Chunks broke off, stabilized in the airstream, and began a parabolic descent that is generally aligned with the camera angle, making the target aspect change nearly imperceptible as it descends. Without source details, I can't say more. Now, that's
Yeah.
a bummer. That sounds pretty like, hey, Ryan Graves, another pilot, knows what he's talking about, says this is likely this. But what I really appreciate, Ryan Graves follows up and he says, Representative Burleson, I am aware of much longer videos with clearly anomalous behaviors captured by the same MQ-9 Reaper platform in other parts of the world. The witness is willing to come forward, and the videos are accessible through proper channels.
Yeah, go Ryan. Show him
Yeah.
all the videos.
So, yeah, in a nutshell, God damn it. They showed this video of a Hellfire missile hitting something. The video
Yeah.
at first glance looks super anomalous, but we can't rule out a completely mundane explanation. And
Yeah.
without more information, it's hard to say. Is this someone trying to mislead Burleson by feeding him an easily explainable video and misleading him that it's UAP? Or is it actually a UAP video that was found in a collection of UAP stuff, and there's contextual information we're missing? Is
Mm-hmm.
there velocity or other information that would help explain why this video was deemed noteworthy and someone retrieved it? We just don't have the answers.
Right.
So this is why I found it a little frustrating that in the aftermath of the hearing, this is basically all anybody is talking about on Twitter and Reddit, is like
Yeah.
going over the Hellfire video frame by frame and like, oh, it's definitely a balloon. It's definitely not a balloon. Here's all the
Yeah.
reasons why. Here's all the reasons why it's definitely weird. And like,
And maybe that's why.
but y'all are missing everything that all the other witnesses said. And the other
Yeah.
witnesses said some pretty cool stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what I want to
So
talk about now that we're 40 minutes in.
I know, right? Yeah. It seems like this could just be a psyop to distract from the
Absolutely.
entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the frustrating thing about the UFO world is even the people who are credible and have paper trails are accused of running psyops. The instant you have something anonymous or something without enough details, like it might be legit, but you just kind of have to assume that there's a
Yeah.
possibility that it's garbage, and it's impossible to say. So the thing that I'm always saying to people, like someone was asking, ahead of this hearing, they had announced the witnesses. There were 3 military witnesses who I hadn't heard of, and George Knapp, the UAP, legendary UAP journalist, who I've definitely heard of.
Yeah.
And someone
Right.
was like, hey, how do we feel about George Knapp? And I replied, like, it kind of depends on how you feel about the whole thing. George Knapp is a very well-respected investigative journalist, period. His career has mostly been focused on UAP stuff because he's in Nevada. George Knapp is the reason we know about Area 51 because George Knapp is the one who introduced the world to Bob Lazar. Well, how you feel about Bob Lazar is going to impact how you feel about George Knapp. And how you feel about the Area 51 story is going to influence how you feel about George Knapp. George Knapp today works very closely with a very outspoken filmmaker named Jeremy Corbell, who is himself a little controversial. So everything is muddy. And the thing I always try to come back to is, look, if one person says something incredible, cool, I'm interested. If 2 people say something incredible and they're correlating each other, I'm a lot more interested. If multiple people who are credible are saying incredible things and they all kind of echo each other, I'm interested.
Yeah.
When we get back to things like these Hellfire missiles and George Knapp giving testimony and stuff, I try to look at what are the things that have supporting testimony? What are the things that are echoing what we have heard from other people? And the thing that we hear clearly across many, many witnesses is there does seem to be a secret crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. Basically, any details beyond that are controversial. Is it a successful reverse engineering program? Maybe.
I mean,
maybe not.
Probably not.
Is it? Are there currently military triangles flying over our head, or have they never even been able to open the door on those things? We've heard both of those things. So I try to read between the lines and look for the truth in the commonalities. And that's where these next witnesses that we're going to talk about, I think, are exciting because we're getting more of what we have heard a lot about, which is unusual UAP sightings over military and especially nuclear facilities.
Awesome. Okay.
So, our first whistleblower that we're going to talk about is really exciting because this is the first time we have had an active duty witness or whistleblower come up. Everybody else is former Air Force, former Navy, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. And now
right.
they feel comfortable to talk. This guy is a currently serving Navy officer and got
Wow.
permission from the Navy to come. Now,
Oh.
what was funny about that is when Luna introduces him, she says, "This is Chief Alexandra Wiggins from the Navy. He is here representing his own personal experiences and not those of the Navy." And then he
Hmm.
repeated that in his opening statement. So they were
Yeah,
being very clear. He is not here on behalf of the Navy, even though he
sure.
is active duty. So
Yeah.
cool that he got permission to talk, even if they did have to add a funny disqualifier.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
Cool.
he introduces himself. He says, "I am Alexandra Wiggins, an active duty U.S. Navy operations specialist, senior chief petty officer with approximately 23 years of service. On the evening of February 15th, 2023, so this is very recent,
Yeah, really recent.
off the coast of Southern California, I was serving on board the USS Jackson. During that period, I moved between the Interior Communications Center, ICC-1, and the bridge wing, correlating the sensor picture with visual observations, part of my routine responsibilities for surface and air picture management. What I observed and what our crew recorded was not consistent with conventional aircraft or drones as they appear on our system."
Okay. Cool. I mean, it's nice to hear like why it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate him being like right out the gate, "I know what aircraft and drones looks like. This
Right,
wasn't
yeah.
that."
Yeah.
Although that becomes pretty clear in the next
Yeah.
moment. He
Okay.
says, "A self-luminous tic-tac shaped object emerged from the ocean before linking up with three other similar objects. The four then disappeared simultaneously with a highly synchronized, near instantaneous acceleration. I observed no sonic boom and no conventional propulsion signatures, no exhaust plume, no control surface articulation on the Sapphire image system. Shortly after the synchronized departure, the radar tracks dropped. These observations were multi-sensor and recorded inside the ICC-1 with time location overlay visible in our source frames that have been made public by journalists."
What? Hang on. So, first, I love that is the most beautiful description I've ever heard. Like, well done.
Yeah, very
It's
clear.
just like very clear. There's nothing about aliens. It's like, hey, this is what I saw. This is what we
Here's what I
recorded.
saw, and here's why it was weird.
But yeah, exactly. But it's been made public. Like, why aren't we talking about that?
Yeah, so here's what's really interesting. This video actually dropped a while ago by George Knapp. What's funny is this guy saw George Knapp drop the video and he's like, "Hey, that's my voice."
Hmm,
So
that's so
he
funny.
reached out to George Knapp and became a whistleblower because the video was already out. He didn't have to do that. So weirdly, he shows up with the evidence already in the public sphere.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the video is really unimpressive. It
Yeah.
looks just like the earlier Tic Tac videos we have. It just
Okay.
happens to be a newer one. And yeah, there's a little Tic Tac in the middle of the
Hmm.
screen. That's it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so I just think it's funny that he's like, yeah, made public by journalists, and like the journalist he's talking about is sitting right next to him.
Yeah. Right. That is really funny.
Yeah. Now the other thing I really liked about him, you mentioned this already. He's not trying to say it's aliens. He even doubles down on that. He says, "To be clear, I am not here to make claims beyond my lane. I'm here to provide a first-hand account of what I saw, what our systems recorded, and why it matters for safety, for intelligence, and public confidence. My request to you is practical. Help us capture, protect, fairly evaluate the evidence, and provide a safe pathway for those in uniform to report it."
That's that's gorgeous.
Right?
Like the thing that the thing I don't understand is why would it be worth threatening someone over this. It's
Yeah.
just what he saw. It's not,
Mhm.
he doesn't say it's aliens. It's just
Right.
observations. Like, what's so threatening?
Now, interestingly, this guy was not threatened. In fact, he kind of made a point that no one ever harassed him about his sightings. No one ever told him that he shouldn't talk about it.
Good.
It was recorded. It is public. The Navy gave him permission to be here. Like, it was funny because they're talking to all the other witnesses, and like, one of the guys is like, yeah, I spoke to someone who was explicitly threatened. And another guy is like,
Mm-hmm.
my career has been ruined by becoming a whistleblower. And this guy's
Yeah.
like, the Navy told me I could be here.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Maybe the Navy is just like, yeah, all right, let's do this.
That does seem to be something we have seen, is broadly speaking, the Navy seems to be much more open to investigating and talking about this than the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The next whistleblower I want to talk about is
From the Air
Jeffrey
Force.
Nuccetelli. He says, I am a former military police officer with 16 years of active duty service in the United States Air Force. Between 2003 and 2005, 5 UAP incidents occurred at Vandenberg Air Force Base,
Mm.
home to the National Missile Defense Project, a top national security priority. At the time, we were conducting launches deemed by the National Reconnaissance Office as, quote, the most important in 25 years, end quote.
Wow.
These facilities were vital, and they were repeatedly visited by UAP. Each incident was witnessed by multiple personnel, documented, investigated, and reported up the chain of command. We sent information up, but got no guidance, came back down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that they didn't even offer guidance. But I wanted to pop in and mention that Vandenberg is also just like a big rocket launch place. SpaceX does their like I don't know what to call them, latitudinal rockets, the ones that go kind of over the poles. That's where they do it there. But the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, is always these like super duper top secret launches that nobody knows anything about.
Yeah.
And the most important in 25 years, like, whoa, now
Yeah.
I want to know so much more about that. Like, is this the
Yeah, he
X-37?
references this later. He's like, there were 500 military police officers securing
my
this
God.
launch. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm full disclosure here. He describes several incidents that happened at Vandenberg, and then he describes a personal encounter he had, which was basically him and his buddies were having a barbecue in the backyard, and there was an unusual light in the sky that performed unusual maneuvers, and then descended to hover over them. I'm not really talking about that one too much because it's like that's all there is to it. The other ones were military encounters that were better documented and happened in military facilities and kind of plug into the larger narrative of military witnesses in particular need a way to talk about this safely and receive guidance from their chain of command about what to do. Because what's happening right now is sometimes we report it, sometimes we don't, because it doesn't always feel safe to do it. And even when you do report it, you never hear anything back. So we're all just making it up as we go along every time.
Yeah.
That ain't great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nuccetelli says the incursions began on October 14th, 2003, when Boeing contractors reported a massive glowing red square silently hovering over 2 missile defense sites. After several minutes, it drifted east and vanished behind the hills. This event, now known as the Vandenberg Red Square, was later referenced by Representative Luna during the first public hearing on this topic. Official Air Force records documenting it are now held by Aero and the FBI. Later that night, while I was on duty, security guards at a critical launch site reported a bright, fast-moving object. As I responded, the radio erupted with panic. It's coming right at us! Now it's right here! Moments later, it took off! It's gone! When I arrived, 5 shaken witnesses described a massive rectangular craft, larger than a football field, that hovered silently for about 45 seconds before shooting away at incredible speed.
Hmm. That must be so weird.
Right? And it's one of those things like, if I see a tic tac, that's weird,
Hmm.
but it doesn't break my brain
Yeah,
because
right.
it kind of looks like other things that fly. It just flies faster or
Weird.
in unusual ways. If I see something the size of an office block hovering over
Yeah.
me and making no noise and then leaves in the blink of an eye, I don't even have a framework for like what
Handling
just
that.
happened.
Yeah.
And
And if 4
listening to
other
the way
people
that,
next to me
yeah,
also had that, it's like, oh shit.
right? And listening to the way they react, he describes the witnesses as shaken, and you can hear it in their
Hmm.
reactions. It's coming right at us. Oh my God, it's here. Oh, it's gone. Like these are not like calm, steady. Like I would expect military watch officers to be able to call in and be like, there's a helicopter approaching from bearing whatever, like
Right.
coordinating the response that is necessary because there are protocols, I assume, for these
Yeah.
kinds of things. And like, that's not what's happening here. These guys are having a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Nuccetelli described another one. He said, about a week later, another patrol reported a strange light over the ocean heading toward the base. Believing it to be an unannounced aircraft, here you go, this is,
Yeah.
they declared an emergency and launched an armed response. So before they have a
Sure.
chance to realize it's weird, it fits into their categorization of what this
Yeah,
is
they
and
know
how to
what to
respond.
do.
And they
We've been
respond the
trained.
right way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before forces arrived, the object descended, hovered briefly or landed, and then vanished instantly into the night sky. The witness was later threatened and told to keep quiet about the incident, discouraging further reports.
Yeah. Yeah. Unsurprising.
And then after that, things stayed quiet until 2005 when a patrol reported a massive triangular craft, larger than a C 130, hovering low over the main base. It drifted silently across the installation before disappearing into the night.
I do like that C-130 has become like a standard unit of measure.
I
Um,
mean, even people who are
it's
not
helpful.
aerospace nerds like myself know the C 130 is the big one, right?
I mean,
If
it's
it's
a
a really
big ass
big
airplane.
airplane,
Yeah,
that, yeah.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Later on, they were doing some Q&A. Representative Lauren Boebert asked him, has Arrow ever followed up with you about the Red Square event? Hey, great question, right?
Yeah.
Nuccetelli says, they let me know that they were unable to locate any records
Mm-hmm.
because the records had been destroyed by the Air Force, because the Air Force is destroying all police records every 3 years on a schedule.
Yeah. Of course they are. Like,
You know how police departments destroy all their records every three
yeah.
years?
Yeah, of course.
That's
Like,
a thing.
how are they allowed to do this? Like, it can't be that
Absolutely wild.
much, right?
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know.
I mean, there's a reason everybody kind of like gives some side eye to the Air Force about this stuff. This is the kind of
Mhm.
answers you get. Oh, yeah, yeah, we had records about that. We burned them 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because the cloud isn't a thing. Like,
Right? Yeah.
we don't have unlimited storage now.
Well, and
Okay.
I could understand destroying like routine stuff. No, you know what? Even there, like, okay, visitor logs. Like, I can see a situation where we might want to know who went to the military base in June of '87. I don't see
Yeah,
any reason to destroy it.
I don't know.
Um, Representative Scott Perry asked, and he's kind of trying to get at the idea of like, could this have been a U.S. Black Ops program kind of thing? He said, if this were sanctioned by the U.S. government, do you see any reason why they would allow you access, being present, viewing it, hearing it, being around it? Is this an accident? Like, does the US government make these kinds of mistakes like this, where we're doing this test of this new system and oops, we forgot these guys were standing here? Does that sound like something the US government would do? I
Yes, but
appreciate this question
yeah,
because I have known some people in the military who are rolling their eyes right now going, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
They would do that.
absolutely.
But the broader point of if you're testing an extremely secretive thing, you're going to
Right.
take some extra steps. Nuccetelli responds, he says, no, sir. Some of the launches we were doing were like $5 billion projects that
Mm,
had taken 10 years to develop the technology, and these objects were coming right up to the launch pad. So any kind of mistake, I mean, it could cause a catastrophe. For that particular launch, we had 500 Air Force police officers guarding the launch. 500 people. It was that critical.
that is like I actually don't know how many police guard a like a random SpaceX launch, but I can say that 5 billion, like a $5 billion satellite, uh,
Mhm.
that's on par with James Webb. James Webb is
Right.
maybe twice that, but it's monstrous amount of work, like 10,000 people. So I don't know. That's a big project.
Right. Well, and you make the point here that like the Artemis project, which is the
Well,
rocket they're developing to go back to the moon, costs a
yeah,
$100 billion. So
yeah,
what is the actual expected scale? But I think the
yeah,
difference is the Artemis is a project that is designed to leave Earth's atmosphere and travel to another planet and has to have a
yeah,
certain degree of safeguards and,
yeah.
second, you know, where if
That's
you're
true.
developing a next gen Hellfire Missile or ICBM, it's still going to be expensive, but it's a different scale of technology. So yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know if five
yeah.
billion is a lot. It's also in what year did he say it was? Like 2003,
20.
2005. So,
Oh, yeah,
given
yeah,
inflation, that might be more like 10 billion. But yeah,
yeah,
again, we're not military auditors. We don't know what normal
yeah,
price range is, but it
yeah.
certainly gives you a sense. Hundreds of
It's a
police
lot.
officers, 10 years of effort, billions of dollars.
It's a
You're
big
not going
deal.
to just wing and a prayer send
Yeah.
another project in to do a test flight over the launch
Right.
pad. Like you're going to risk 10 years of effort.
Do you think that this accidentally exposes that the thing they were launching was nuclear?
It's a good question. Unfortunately, what we don't have is like UAPs only go to nuclear facilities. They certainly
Yeah.
seem interested in them,
Yeah.
but not exclusively. So
Yeah.
I'm
Could
not
just be
saying
sightseeing.
no, but I'm also not saying yes either. I
Yeah. Yeah.
think we
Yeah.
just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Our next witness is the one I mentioned, who is a federal whistleblower and who has suffered pretty
Mm.
severe reprisals as a result of it.
Okay.
Um, he introduces himself. He says, "My name is Dylan Borland, a former 1N1 geospatial intelligence specialist for the United States Air Force and in active duty enlisted capacity from 2010 to 2013. I am a federal whistleblower, having testified to both the ICIG and ARROW with direct firsthand knowledge of and experience with craft and technology that are not ours and are reportedly operating without congressional oversight." So, big claim right out the
Yeah.
gate here.
Yeah.
Because of my direct knowledge of the reality of certain legacy UAP programs, my professional career was deliberately obstructed, and I have endured sustained reprisals from government agencies for over a decade.
That's
And
brutal.
this, yeah, he talks a lot more about this, but this is something that we hear about repeatedly from people who have gone public. Most notably from our good boy David Grush.
Hmm.
When he came out, not only did they publicly try to smear him by leaking his mental health records, but also we definitely heard that they like sabotaged his security clearances so that he couldn't
Right.
work with Congress effectively. Lou
Yeah.
Elizondo has talked repeatedly about an organized campaign of reprisals where not only do they publicly disparage him by saying that he didn't do the things he did, but also they tried to cancel his pension and remove his
Hmm.
security clearance. Like, definitely, we're seeing this idea of reprisals over and over again.
Yeah. Right.
Now, Borland talks a little more about what he knows, and there's basically two things. He had an encounter where he saw something, so he's a direct witness to seeing a
Okay.
craft, and then he hints at having been exposed to crash retrieval programs, but he doesn't give a lot of details about it.
Okay.
So, first of all, he says, during the summer of 2012, my team was on standby for weather, and I returned to my barracks on base. And at approximately 0130, I saw an approximately 100-foot equilateral triangle take off from near the NASA hangar on base. It flew towards me, stopped about 100 feet in front of me and approximately 100 feet above me. My telephone got extremely hot, completely froze dead. There was between 1 to 2 stories. It was between 1 to 2 stories thick, this equilateral triangle. There were 4 lights in total, 1 light at each corner and a larger light in the center, 2 to 3 times the size of the corner lights. I want to stress real fast, this is a very common description of these triangular shaped craft. Some people believe that these are the US government reverse engineered ones, the
Mm,
triangles. Um, Nobody really knows for sure. Um,
right.
what was really odd was the outside. The craft itself was this black metallic flake paint, but on top of the craft was this gold lava plasma, some kind of fluid going over and around the craft.
Huh.
I was under this triangular craft for 2 to 3 minutes, and then it rapidly ascended to commercial jet level in seconds, displaying zero kinetic disturbance, sound, or wind displacement.
And that would be so cool if we could do that. Like, yeah.
Then he says, some years after that experience, I was further exposed to classified information from the UAP legacy crash retrieval programs through a sensitive position I held within a special access program.
Hmm.
During this time, intelligence officers approached me in fear for their own careers, citing misconduct within these programs and similar retaliation that I was already enduring at this time.
I mean, it sounds like you created a place where people could be honest. And I think that's brave and incredible.
Yeah. It also sounds a lot like Jake Barber. I was experiencing
Hmm.
harassment, and the people I went to talk to about it were like, oh, thank God you're here. We're experiencing harassment too.
I mean,
Um,
affinity is important too, like
yeah.
supporting each other. Yeah.
Borland continues. He says, these issues include medical malpractice committed by the Veterans Affairs staff, denial of work I performed while enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, forged and manipulated employment documents, workplace harassment, including colleagues being directed not to speak with me, manipulation of my security clearance by certain agencies, blocking, delaying, and ultimately removing my ability to be employed within the IC.
Yeah. That's insane. Like some of those things are hardly surprising, like
Mhm.
denial of employment docs, not like people being encouraged to not speak to you, but like medical malpractice is just so messed up. Like,
And this is
don't
the
they?
stuff we hear about all the time, right? We heard
Yeah.
that story about oh god, I've forgotten which senator it was, but there was a guy who said that he had suffered health effects due to
Mm,
exposure to
right. Yeah.
UAPs, but because they had classified his service record, the
Yeah.
VA wouldn't treat him.
Right.
So
Which is
ultimately, a
crazy.
senator had to intervene to get him life saving medical treatment. And we hear
Yeah.
similar stories, even more without involving UFOs,
Hmm.
of people who were exposed to toxic chemicals while working at Area 51, but couldn't
Hmm.
receive treatment for it because officially no one works at Area 51.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
totally messed up.
Um, He said, since my ICIG complaint, I have been prevented from assuming prior employment, and I can confirm I am still blacklisted from certain agencies within the intelligence community. In addition, multiple agencies attempted phishing attacks to assess what I had divulged to the Inspector General, including being asked to disclose details of my ICIG complaint during a CI polygraph or a position unrelated to UFO UAP matters as recently as November 2024. So he's
That's
in the
wild.
office taking a polygraph as part of like a job interview.
Counterintelligence. Yeah.
And they're like, hey, tell us what you told the ICIG.
And it's
Whoa,
like,
that is so illegal. Holy shit.
yeah, right? Like totally illegal. You don't have a need to know. Go away.
Right?
Uh, yeah, but I wonder how they, how would they phrase that in a way that you could answer with like yes, no, honesty.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Anyways,
Representative Eric Burleson asked him, this one's great. You're going to really like this. He
yeah.
said, in the classified realm, have you been exposed to undeniable confirmation of NHI technology?
Wow, just went straight
Borland
there.
replies, yeah, we're going to have a conversation in a skiff for that. Whether I'm legally even allowed to answer that, and whether you're even allowed to hear it, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Smart move.
Oh
Great
my
call on
God.
that one. Yep.
But also, like, that's a yes, right? You
I,
can just say no otherwise.
yeah.
Holy
I mean,
shit. Borland goes on to make another point that we have kind of made, but I think he expressed really eloquently.
mm,
He talks about a statement that Arrow releases on a regular basis, saying that there is no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial stuff, right? Borland says, the statement Arrow has made is, quote, no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials, end quote. Scientific evidence requires a scientific control. Extraterrestrial is an entity on another planet. The only way to scientifically prove something is extraterrestrial is we have to go to that planet, acquire technology, bring it back, and compare it to what we have here. And by that statement, Arrow found no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials. It's basically, I don't want to call it a psyop, but it's a misrepresentation because we do have things, but making that statement isn't technically a lie. It's a misrepresentation of the full truth.
yeah. Hardly surprising. It's weasel words.
Yeah. Now, I want to keep talking about that for a moment, but I also want to briefly mention a wild follow up question that he got. Representative Boebert asks, how do we get to these other planets? How do we get past the Van Allen radiation belt safely? And Borland just kind of like waits a beat and says, I cannot answer that for you.
Yeah. Like all when when I hear that, I'm like, wait, the Van Allen belt, like the one between us and the moon that the Apollo astronauts went through. Like, haven't have you read a single
Yeah.
hard sci-fi book? Like, we know
I don't know, man.
there's NASA reports about how to do it. Like,
It's a real bad question.
yeah, it's not great.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
to
there,
talk a little bit
yeah,
more about weasel words, because we've talked about this a lot, but I do think it's
yeah,
worth kind of zeroing in on this a little bit because the community has talked about this a lot. Um, DoD spokesperson Susan Goff has
yeah,
regularly released this statement verbatim. I can confirm that to date, the Department of Defense has not found any verifiable evidence that any UAP incident is a result of extraterrestrial activity. One
yeah.
of those things that sounds really good for the press. None of the UFO incidents were aliens, but that's not what she's saying. She says, we haven't found any verifiable evidence
Right.
of that. Both evidence and verifiable are undefined in that what qualifies as
Mm-hmm.
evidence to Arrow and what qualifies as verified evidence to Arrow. So it's
Yeah.
definitely weasel words. She may be right,
Yeah.
but it sure feels like a way to put out a statement that sounds like it's not alien without legally saying anything that isn't quite true when it later comes out that you have a crashed UFO in a bunker somewhere.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Recently, this kind of caught wind again when UAP researcher Kyle Warfel emailed her in June asking if he could amend her statement to, quote, include non-human intelligence and unknown intelligence in addition to extraterrestrial. To which Goff replies, no, you may not amend my statement.
Yeah.
Now, that feels like, oh, she's locking in on the weasel words, but also I think probably Pentagon spokespeople are trained to be careful about giving someone permission to modify their statement. No,
Yeah.
I said what I said. Stick with the statement,
No, you cannot
regardless of
amend my
whether
statement.
they do mean that. And in fact, confusingly, in the past, Goff has confirmed that their definition of extraterrestrial does include non-human intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
She is quoted at one point saying, for DOD, the term extraterrestrial encompasses anything that is not terrestrial, e.g. Earth, in origin. Which sounds like it's giving her statement a little more credibility. Okay, it could mean non-human. But again, it gets back to the weasel words of no verifiable evidence that it's not terrestrial. It's weird. We didn't build it. The Russians didn't build it. It hovers when you shine a black light on it, and it can break the sound barrier without making a sound. But I can't say for sure that it wasn't made on Earth.
I can't verify.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about this. My personal read on it is Susan Goff has found the most infuriatingly, frustratingly, perfectly phrased statement that sounds like it's saying it's not aliens, but actually doesn't communicate any information at all, and is just kind of running out the clock on this thing. That's my read on it.
I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. That's what press secretaries do, or spokespeople. Yeah.
All right. So we've been talking a while. I saved what I thought was the best part of the press conference for last, which is George Knapp. Now,
nice.
As I mentioned, George Knapp, legendary UFO reporter, who I don't blame anyone for having complicated feelings about. He is inextricably tied to the Bob Lazar story. He works with Jeremy Corbell now. They have a tendency to say kind of outrageous things. George Knapp has never done anything that overtly discredits him to me.
Okay.
We talked earlier about the Lazar story. I don't have a strong opinion on Lazar one way or another. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I think Lazar is legit. Sometimes I think Lazar is not legit. What I will say is, similar to how everyone was talking about the Hellfire Missile earlier, we just don't have the evidence to say conclusively Lazar is or isn't lying. Lazar is telling an interesting story. There are parts of the story that have since been proven wrong. There are other parts that have since been reinforced by other witnesses. It's a mess. And what that leaves me with is, coming into this hearing, I thought George Knapp was going to be the least interesting part, because George Knapp already says everything he has to say in public. Like, he's not coming in with groundbreaking claims.
Right.
And yet, his session was maybe my favorite part of the whole hearing.
Interesting. So you had some new claims, or?
I don't know if they were new claims. Some of the claims were the first time I've heard them. Some of the claims it was the first time they're going public. We'll get into it. You'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
So he opens up. He says, "I'm George Knapp." By the way, by far, he was the easiest speaker up there. Like, a trained public speaker. He's like riffing off of his notes. Like, he was a joy to see. Says, "I'm George Knapp, chief investigative reporter at KLAS TV in Las Vegas. I began my pursuit of this weird mystery way back in 1987, and for 38 years, I have always approached this as a news story. It's not a matter of faith or belief to me. It is a story, and it's an important one. I want to share a couple of things that I've learned along the way on this long journey, and I submitted most of that in written form. Because I estimate that my statement here today would take about 4.5 hours in full, I'm going to try to jump over and touch on the more important salient points. All of the witnesses have to submit a written statement, and it's generally the written statement pretty closely matches what you say during your 5-minute statement.
Intro.
You're given
Yeah.
5 minutes to speak. Most people pretty directly read what they have written down. Some people have a little more like supporting evidence in there, but mostly you're reading that. George Knapp submitted something like a 12-page like witness statement and was just kind of jumping around it. It was
Yeah.
great. He says, what got me hooked on the UFO story and convinced that it was worth investigating is the paper trail. Documents that were squeezed out of the US government after the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, became the law of the land. And those documents paint a much different picture than what the public, the press, and Congress have been told over many years. The documents from military and intelligence personnel behind closed doors admit that, quote, these things are real. They're not fictitious. They can fly in formation. They're evasive, and they can outperform any aircraft known to exist, including ours, end quote. The public, of course, as I said, has been told something much different.
Yeah. That's a banger line.
Yeah. And for anybody who's more interested in that, we did an episode fairly recently when volume 1 of the Arrow historical report came out. We went over their efforts to kind of summarize the history of military investigations into UFOs, and they kind of were very dismissive of it. And we went back and talked about why some of those were very interesting. And the real brief takeaway from that is, yes, there are many, many documents, especially from the early years in the late 40s, early 50s, of military people digging into it and very conclusively saying, this is non-human. This is not us. It's not the Russians. China wasn't even a consideration at the point. It's not German. Like, whatever this is, it outperforms everything. And it's pretty easy nowadays to be like, the Tic Tac does some things that, say, an F-16 can't. But I could believe that there's a black program that has designed a next generation fighter plane that can do some of these things, maybe.
Yeah.
And we have seen that some of the planes were developed that way, right? The
B-52.
the B-2 bomber was developed
B-2.
that.
Yeah.
Was it the B-2? The big stealth, the U-2. Sorry, the one that flew
U-2.
really, really high.
Yeah, the A117
came out of Area 51. In fact, Area 51 was developed to develop the U-2, and then they shut it down before they reopened it. The Nighthawk, the F-117 came out of there. The B-2 bomber came out of it.
Yeah.
Like, all of these planes at one point were wild fantasies. The F-117 Nighthawk is this bizarre, like,
Still kind
flying
of
wedge of angles. It doesn't look aerodynamic. I mean, it looks aerodynamic, but it doesn't look like it could hold itself up in the air. It's very, very strange. So today it's easy for me to go, sure, maybe. But the thing is, we've been seeing things like the Tic Tac since 1947.
Yeah.
And in 1947, it was a very definitive no. No one has built anything like this. That is not ours or adversary technology. So this is kind of the big question mark that you pull out if somebody's trying to be very dismissive, going, I think it's a U.S. black project. It might be now, but that does not explain what was going on in the 40s and 50s when military people were very seriously investigating incidents and writing very alarming documents internally saying these things outperform anything we got and we can't do anything about it. And the conclusion that they came to over and over again was, do not tell the public. We are post-World War II. Everything is very unstable. The last thing we want anyone to think is that the U.S. military can't defend itself. So anyway, I love
what's
that quote
crazy. Yeah. So brief aside. So the U-2 started development in 1954, which is pretty wild. But the 117 and the B-2 were in like 75. It doesn't feel like I don't know. It feels like it's hard to imagine what they would be doing right now. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's the thing. That's why whenever you see these things come out, by the time they are publicly seen, they feel like they're maybe 20 years ahead of what we can currently build.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it's easy for me to look at what we currently have, which is pretty hot shit, and go,
Yeah,
what would a plus 20 years version of that go? And I don't know if I get to the tic tac, but I could maybe get to something that explains something that behaves like the tic tac or something. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
nowadays I can do it. In 1947, I can't.
yeah, yeah. It's like in 75, the F-16 and F-14 were like just starting to enter service. And to think that they're, oh yeah, also building the F-117, like,
Yeah,
wow, it's so different. I
absolutely
don't know.
wild. Yeah. George Knapp goes on to say, the one name I do want to bring up in this session is Robert Bigelow. Now, we've
Yeah,
talked a
of
lot about
course.
Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow ran Bass Aerospace. He was at one point actively a contractor with the U.S. military. They were the
Hmm.
primary contractor for the OSAP program, which was the program that we heard about in the 2017 New York Times article. They were
Mm-hmm.
actively investigating UFOs and Skinwalker Ranch. The rumor has always been that Bigelow was building a bunker and was planning to have UAP material transferred to him from Lockheed Martin. We've heard that story repeatedly over the years. So Knapp says the name I want to bring up is Robert Bigelow. Looking into the idea of crash retrievals and reverse engineering while OSAP, that program, was active, the DIA's contractor, Robert Bigelow of Las Vegas, made a bold attempt to acquire physical proof of UAP crashes. It has been widely reported and suspected that Lockheed Martin is one of the contractors, the defense contractors that has held this stuff, stored it away in secrecy, and tried to figure out how it works. I have confirmed on the record that Robert Bigelow and a trusted colleague from OSAP met and negotiated with senior executives at Lockheed Martin and hammered out a deal wherein Bigelow's company would receive a quantity of unusual material that had been stashed away and protected at a facility in California. That material was not made here.
Um, is so I feel like Lou Elizondo talked about this. Was there any part of this that felt surprising?
It's not surprising to us who have paid
Okay,
attention to it
cool. All
because
right.
David Grush, Lou Elizondo, George Knapp, and multiple
Yeah.
other people have made this claim. What is interesting is George Knapp saying it under oath to
Mm,
Congress. I have confirmed
yeah.
on the record this happened.
Yeah. Right.
That's a
That
big
is
step.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. uh Knapp, again, this is still his opening 5 minute statement. Like he's just blazing through this stuff. Like
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
the Congress people kind of reeling. He goes, I want to move on now to the Russia files because that was going to be the central impetus of what I was going to talk to you about today. All the rest of that stuff was just laying the groundwork. Knapp
Yeah.
says, back in the early 90s, I got into Russia, met with a number of their defense officials, the Ministry of Defense, and others who confirmed for me that Russia had been doing the same thing that the United States had been doing. That is, secretly studying UFOs while publicly saying something completely different. The documents and interviews that I obtained and have now shared with this task force show that the USSR launched what is almost certainly the largest UFO UAP investigation in the world.
That's awesome. I'd like. I have to imagine that the Kremlin is not going to be super pleased about this.
He talks a
But
little bit about that. The
okay.
people who talked to him ended up getting in trouble. The quote he
I
gave
bet.
was when he went back a few years later, he was told, if I had met with you 5 years earlier, I would be in prison. If I had met with
Mm,
you 10 years earlier, I would have been shot.
mm,
As
wow.
is, they were just like, discredited. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Interesting.
I want to be clear. I've heard rumors for years that George Knapp brought a lot of files out of the USSR.
Yeah.
We've heard David Grush confirm that the USSR had its own UFO investigation. George Knapp has never publicly released these files, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Eric Burleson holds up what looks to be about a half a ream of paper held together with a massive binder clip, like just loose leaf. He goes, "This is a huge file." Like,
Oh,
it's this
okay.
massive pile of,
Yeah.
I assume, scanned and
Yeah.
photocopied documents that he smuggled out of Russia. It's
Oh my God.
bonkers.
So is it public? Like, was this entered into the like congressional record or?
It was entered into the congressional record. It does not appear to be public yet. And I
Okay.
don't know 100% if everything that goes into the congressional record automatically becomes public, but they made
Okay.
a point of saying it had been entered into the record. Knapp made a point of saying, "I have provided these files to the task force." The task force talks repeatedly about disclosure. So I've got to imagine it's only a matter of time before they
Yeah.
hit the public. But looking around, I haven't found them yet. If I'm wrong, reach out to me, please. Scott at
Yeah.
veryexcitingtime.com.
Yeah.
I don't speak Russian, but this would be very interesting.
But
Um,
yeah.
anyway,
But
Knapp
we can
keeps
use a
talking.
translator.
Yeah, Knapp keeps talking. He says the first phase of that was an order sent out to the entire USSR military empire that every unit, if you see something strange in the sky, a craft, an orb, something unusual, you had to gather all the evidence, collect testimony from witnesses, look for physical evidence, and all of that information went into one program at the Ministry of Defense. Thousands and thousands of these reports came in. A lot of them were first routed to the KGB and then back to another program that came after this collection effort called Thread 3. And Thread 3 was an analysis program that we provided to the committee the documents of what they were trying to do. And essentially, they were trying to build their own UFOs. They were using the information from their observations and studies to try to figure out that technology. The guy who was in charge of that program, Colonel Boris Sokolov, told me that their goal was to basically develop technology that would be superior to anything we had based on what they learned from the UFOs. And then they cut George Knapp off to play the Hellfire video.
Oh my God, really?
Now, admittedly, he had well burned through his 5
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh my God, he was stuck. Now, there is a little more detail
Yeah.
in his testimony PDF,
Okay.
which is available on the Congressional website and in our show notes. It's worth skimming through. It just kind of goes into a little more detail of what he said here in a summary. But yeah, buck wild. Everybody else gave
Yeah.
their nice opening statement. It contained everything. Then they did some Q&A. George Knapp is like, "I know I'm not allowed to talk for 4.5 hours, but here's the highlights. I'm here because of the paper trail. You should look into Robert Bigelow's transfer of crash materials from Lockheed Martin. Oh, also, I went to Russia and brought back all of their UFO files, and here you go." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, let's look at this video."
Yeah. Ugh. I mean, hardly surprising, but
They did circle back to him during Q&A time. Representative Tim Burchett asks a very good question. How did you manage to obtain classified Russian UAP documents, and how did you get them back to the United States?
yeah.
George Knapp kind of chuckles. He says, "I did something kind of dumb. I met with these officials during that time period, glasnost, perestroika. The Russians were trying to open up to the world, and I saw it as a window of opportunity, and it was. We were able to talk these folks into providing us information that otherwise we would never have seen. Some of that was classified. Well, I found out that they only stamped the top pages of these documents that were classified. So I just removed the top pages. I removed those pages and I carried them out. And if they caught me, I'd be in a gulag still."
God. That's I don't even know if that's more dumb or brave, but uh he must have been so young at
It's
the time.
definitely dumb. It's
Yeah.
definitely dumb.
Yeah.
To his credit, he says that. But I mean, on the other hand, we have these files. So
Yeah.
uh, Representative Luna asks him another very reasonable question. How do we know that the Russian files you obtained aren't just bullshit given to you as a disinformation campaign against the US government?
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent question.
Knapp responds, and again, Knapp is a journalist who is used to having to establish credibility of
Yeah.
sources, right? He says, that's a good question. I shared some of the files with the Senate Intelligence Committee when I first got back, because that was requested by the Russians who shared some of that info with me.
Oh, interesting.
Secondly, I gave all of that material to the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, through Robert Bigelow at Bass and Jim Lukatsky at the OSAP program. And they hired a whole team to go through them and retranslate them and analyze it. And then they created a structure of how the UFO programs in the USSR, in Russia, were put together. They said they were real. The other person who said they were real is David Grush.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much enough for me.
Yeah. I will say we don't know where David Grush got his information from, so it might be circular reporting here, where David Grush knows these programs were real because he saw the DIA files, which came
Yeah.
from George Knapp. But
Yeah. But David
it,
Grush is not
it's
like,
not just George Knapp saying, here's some shit a Russian gave me and throwing it
yeah,
on the
right.
desk. Like,
Yeah. It
they
was
were
a dead
vetted to a
drop.
degree.
I don't know where
Yeah.
it came from.
Representative Burleson chimes in at this point and says, to me, the validity of this document is underscored by the fact that Russia would not want this to be known. They absolutely would not want the public to know, or the United States to know, that there was a vulnerability in their missile systems.
Wait, what? Where's the. Did I miss something about a missile system?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he talks about this a little bit, but in a
Okay.
nutshell, God, there it is again. The documents cover the Russian UAP programs,
Yeah.
and they seem to be almost a mirror image of everything that happened in the US. There are crash retrieval, reverse engineerings, there's struggle to
Yeah.
accomplish anything. And in particular, there are UAP coming right up to military bases and launch silos. There's a very famous story in the US about a nuclear missile launch facility being shut down by UFOs and the crew being completely unable to do anything with it.
Got it.
Russia has an identical version of this story with the horrifying detail that instead of being shut down, the launch codes were entered and the missiles were primed to launch, and they couldn't stop it.
Oh my God.
And then the UFOs flew away and everything went back under their control.
Oh,
But Knapp says the Russians interpreted this very clearly as a sign from the others, like, we could see what you're doing in there, knock it off, like slapping a child on the wrist,
yeah.
So Burleson's point is these documents say the same thing about the Russians that ours say about us, that it's kind of embarrassing, but these things invade our airspace with impunity and have literally interfered with nuclear launch facilities.
Right.
That's not something Russia would want out in public at the time.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Representative Nick Begich swings for the moon and says, are any of you willing to name specific gatekeepers within the root cell of the UAP SAP Federation?
What does that mean?
Basically, who's keeping this UFO stuff secret from Congress, right? The SAP is Special Access Program. Like, who's illegally concealing this from Congress? And everyone just kind of like blinks at him. And George Knapp leans forward. He says, well, one of them was named Dr. James Ryder at Lockheed.
Oh, hey, that's cool. We don't often hear those names. Is he still like at Lockheed? Is he like...
So we'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
Knapp continues. He says, again, to emphasize, I don't fault these contractors for doing what they were asked to do by our government. They're supposed to lie if people ask them about it. And the intelligence agencies who gave them this stuff, CIA, I think primarily, told them to keep it quiet. And they've done that. And I suspect that they would like an off ramp and that they would like some help with figuring out this technology at some point.
Yeah.
The guy kind of presses them again. Everybody still just kind of hums and haws. And Knapp leans forward again. He goes, I have another name for you. Glenn Gaffney, CIA.
Awesome. Okay. That's amazing.
Now, Glenn Gaffney is not someone we have ever talked about on the podcast, but it is not the first time we've heard his name in the UFO community. Liberation Times wrote about this, and this all kind of ties back to this story of Lockheed trying to transfer stuff to Bass. So Liberation Times says, multiple sources claimed that these material transfer efforts were blocked by former CIA Director of Science and Technology Glenn Gaffney when he held the position. Gaffney's alleged interference in the material transfer left those involved, including the now deceased James Ryder, former VP of Lockheed Martin Space Systems, who is said to have led efforts within Lockheed Martin, feeling threatened due to the harshness of exchanges with CIA officials. Ultimately, Liberation Times understands that the transfer was blocked by Gaffney as the CIA's Directorate of Technology remains the original custodian of the alleged non-human materials, which Lockheed Martin may still possess to this day.
Yeah, probably. Or they buried it in a nutshell somewhere.
In a nutshell. Oh my God. So yeah, freaking George Knapp, man. Now, again,
who would have thought?
We have heard for years that George Knapp smuggled files out of Russia. We have heard for years about this Lockheed material transfer story. We have definitely seen the FOIA'd files that Knapp referred to. But I think similar to how Luna at the very start, it was helpful for her to say, here are 34 names of high-ranking government officials who have said, yo, this is weird.
Yeah.
That's helpful to kind of recap. Having George Knapp come in and say, I've been digging into this shit for 40 years.
Yeah.
There are FOIA requests showing that the military takes it way more seriously than they're willing to admit publicly. Here's a phone book of secret files I smuggled out of Russia showing the exact same shit was happening over there. Oh, and also, here are names of people who blocked a materials transfer from a crash retrieval program.
Yeah.
Like, man,
who'd have
George
thought?
Knapp. Like, everyone's talking about this stupid Hellfire Missile video.
Yeah.
Did none of you watch the hearing? There was some good shit in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think it must have been intentional. Like,
Maybe.
dead dropped at just the right moment. But hey, you know, when that file gets scanned and distributed, that'll probably wake some things up too.
Yeah. I do suspect we have probably already heard the bulk of the stories that are in there. It's just that now we will have kind of the original source documents of where that came from.
Yeah.
And you know, as Luna points out, we don't know for sure the veracity of these files. I like that Knapp made a point of they were validated by, you know, the DIA and other people, but that doesn't prove anything. But still, I mean, it was a very exciting hearing.
It's a very exciting time.
It's a very exciting time. All right. And with that, I will say to everyone, thank you so much for joining us on It's a Very Exciting Time. We're back, baby. You can find show notes and more on our website, veryexcitingtime.com, as well as links to our Discord and social media accounts.
Oh, now that you've said that, Scott, are we back? Like, are we going to be back in 2 weeks?
Back. I give myself permission to occasionally skip a show if I'm feeling burned out, but for the most part, I think we're back.
Okay, cool. You can feel free to email us at Scott or Chuck at veryexcitingtime.com. And if you do want to support the show, Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/veryexcitingtime, or we have merch at veryexcitingtime.com/merch.
And Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me talk about UFOs so she doesn't have to.